Is this the year for the University of North Texas Mean Green to finally win the championship?
Come on.
What? Is it not? They can't.
Ask him about the University of Texas.
Let's talk about UT.
All right.
Not the N.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the quarterback situation at UT?
You know what? I think, and I've told people to me, because obviously the question, especially from people operating from a 30,000-foot view, is always, when are we going to see Arch Manning, right? He's got the last name. His recruiting process was bananas. And I keep telling people, look around college football right now. DJ Uiagalelei just got named the starter this last week.
Yep.
The Ohio State Buckeyes still have not called the quarterback competition. Alabama still hasn't called. Texas called this fight in the spring. Like, if that doesn't tell you where we're at in this process, I don't know what will. And so Quinn Ewers got a haircut, which is cool. He's living proof that most guys don't look better with long hair. And seems to be in a position where, man, we saw a lot of good things from Quinn before the injury last season. It wasn't quite as consistent after that, but a second year in Sark's offense that pretty much hummed no matter what. I mean, if there's a cash equivalent in college to what the 49ers have been in the NFL, it's probably Steve Sarkisian's offense, especially since he's been at Texas. And so I feel pretty good about the quarterback position there, mostly because you look around him at the wide receiver spot, at the tight end spot, offensive line, there's some talent there. This thing's built to go. And quite honestly, after Brett Yormark's conference comments yesterday, I feel like the funniest possible outcome is now Texas 100% winning the Big 12 this year, so he's got to eat that on the way out.
Is there any chance they go to Alabama in week 2 for them and win?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we saw last year. Now, getting in at home, certainly a different bit of calculus, but last year they took them down to the wire against an Alabama team that had the reigning Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback, a running back in Jahmyr Gibbs, who was an incredible weapon, and Will Anderson on defense. Like, that Bama team has lost a lot, and while they deserve the benefit of the doubt, no one has been better at weathering change in college football over the last decade plus now than Nick Saban. He deserves the credit for that. Their recruiting rankings bear that out. They've got 5-star after 5-star and waves there, but they've got questions at some of the most important positions, or at least departures that they've got to reckon with. Dallas Turner is still going to be great as a rusher. Whoever they get out of this quarterback group for new coordinator Tommy Rees is still going to be an incredibly gifted player, but you've lost a lot, and this Texas team is one of the few, as we look around college football, that's got anything resembling continuity at key positions. And in the portal era, I think we're going to see that become an increasingly more valuable thing.
Caleb Williams. I'm more of a pro guy than a college guy, and he just looked unbelievable to me late in the year. What do you think of Caleb Williams, not only this year, but his future in the NFL?
Listen, I think he's got all the makings of what I think you wanted as a top quarterback, too. I've said this a lot, and we see it during preseason football right now. There are not a lot of teams that can boast quality offensive lines at the top end, and certainly not quality depth. And what that means is you more often than not need quarterbacks that are going to be able to help bail you out every now and then. And if anyone watched Caleb Williams in college last year, the one thing that is overwhelmingly clear, in addition to an arm that can make all the throws, in addition to the creativity to do some of the Mahomes angle stuff, to make the impossible throws. Like, I saw the Zach Wilson Pro Day throw that lit everybody up, that got him drafted as high as he was a couple years ago, where he's rolling left and flings it sidearmed right on a rope. Caleb Williams did that in a game against Utah. And if it were not for a receiver dropping the ball, it was right in the breadbasket. So he's got all that, but to me, his greatest attribute is what he can do, buying time in the pocket while still keeping his eyes downfield. He's like trying to tackle a greased pig. I watched personally my Notre Dame Fighting Irish struggle to get him down at any point in that matchup last year. And so I think as you project that to the next level, yeah, he's got all the other things here. He's played for a coach in Lincoln Riley who knows how to develop that position. But he's also, if you're going to a bad team, which you expect a quarterback going 1 overall, as he's likely to do, to go to, you got to be able to get yourself out of some jams, and he's as good at that as any quarterback we've seen in quite some time.
Well, Mike, I am a UNT alum, but I did pick OU as my football team to kind of follow, and that's kind of, we're in a weird transition phase right now. And what are you expecting out of them as they come back to this thing?
Yeah, listen, I think for them it should be a year that regresses to the mean in a positive way. Like year one for Brent Venables went sideways. After I called the Kansas State game, I was down in Norman. All the feelings were so positive. Dylan Gabriel and this offense looked great defensively. It was every bit of what you would expected under Brent Venables through the first few weeks of the season. And then Adrian Martinez and company ran right down State Street on them all night long. And from there, it just never felt right after. But I think for another year of Dylan Gabriel and Jeff Levy together in that offense, who's a great coordinator with a great quarterback, I think we're going to see this level set some. It seems like despite some turnover on the offensive line, they're excited about the talent in that group there. Defensively, I don't think they've got one dominant player along the front seven that's going to stand out to you necessarily. But we know with Brent Venables, it's usually about the whole being better than the sum of the great parts. And they had some great parts under his time at Clemson. But we know that scheme, he's one of the guys I think gives you a decided schematic advantage. And so I expect that to show up for them more this year and for that to be something that resembles more of the team we expected when he showed up.
Now, I know it won't happen this year, but in a few years, are you excited for the conference that we have renamed the 4-Pack, where they will all just play each other 3 times, I assume, round robin style?
Man, I tell you what, I really feel for those guys. And you know what? It would still be at least compelling from like the Oregon State and Wazoo standpoint here. I can't speak for Cal and Stanford and what they're going to become. You know, Justin Wilcox is a great coach defensively, but offensively, they've just never been able to put it together. Tons of transfer portal departures this year on that side of the football. So we'll see there. Stanford and Troy Taylor, we'll see what they're going to become in the modern era. Stanford meant one thing for so long in my lifetime, and now looks like it's finally in the last couple of years changed into something that might be a lesser version of that. But Oregon State, man, like Jonathan Smith had that program in a really good place for a long time, going and raising the floor there consistently. Washington State, I mean, this is going back to the Leach days, has always felt like this wild card, but Cam Ward, one of the most fun quarterbacks in college football, a guy with a really interesting ceiling that we know was a big story coming in last year. I hope something good happens for them right now. But if it ends up being the 4-Pack, I can promise you, I've seen all those tweets saying, if you watch week 0, any of these games, and you're not an alum of these, you're a sick person. I'm the sicko that'll be watching the Pac-4 if it comes down to that, because I don't have self-respect. I got nothing but time, and I got nothing but the ability to watch these games, and I damn sure will.
With that in mind, if you could really push the 4-Pack instead of the Pac-4, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. You know what? I will do that bidding for you guys. I will preach the gospel to the rest of the masses.
Okay.
Big beers come in 4-packs. So,
yes,
yeah.
absolutely. All right. With that in mind, then we will plug your Twitter account. And actually, I have an NFL question for you off of that. It's at Mike Golic Jr. We were talking earlier about the Isaiah Simmons trade. He's going to the Giants, and this is the home of the Dallas Cowboys. You tweeted out, I'm begging any God that will listen, please do not play him at linebacker. How would you set him up, or where do you think he would be most effective as a player?
So the obvious answer that makes sense to me is in the role that we've seen for like a Jamal Adams, or last year in Baltimore, like a Kyle Hamilton, where you play him as that overhang defender, you get him down near the box, it puts him in range to be a blitz tool, which we know Wink Martindale is going to want to do no matter where he's positioned, right? Wink's just going to throw the kitchen sink every play, and it's why Isaiah, at the cost they got him on, feels like the perfect upside play for them. But what I'm saying here is nothing I'd imagine Jonathan Gannon, who's an infinitely smarter person than me, who's coached pretty good defensive players, hadn't thought before. And it seems like the reports coming out of Cardinals camp were, as Simmons moved back to safety this year, they clearly didn't like what they were seeing enough to just let a former first-round pick, albeit from a prior regime, walk for a 7th-round pick. So I do have to reckon with the idea that the Isaiah Simmons I remember from Clemson probably isn't the guy that we've got anymore, but that would be, to me, the ideal world, because he's never been a guy that I think has been built for the box, even in a modern NFL where, you're probably less of a button shed linebacker that's got to come downhill and take on blocks than we've had traditionally, but I'd still like to see him in a pace and space where he can go and be the great athlete that we've seen, and in that system affect the game, and probably what's his best role at this point, which is going towards the quarterback.
Like Dan Quinn here, he said, you know what, I'm going to try this Micah Parsons guy out on the edge. And I'm going to kind of, I'm going to move him around just a little bit. And with Simmons, I was always like, that's the kind of guy that I would like to see do a lot of different things. I do wonder sometimes, is it a bold move by coaches to do stuff like that, or is it just a lot of trust in what they can do scheme wise and what they can develop in a player?
Yeah, I think it's different for different people. There's certainly the hubris of some coaches that says, I know better than anybody else. I see a vision for how you fit into my scheme. They go square peg sometimes into round hole. And then there are others that look and will try and tailor it to what the player does best. And I think that's more of what ended up happening in Dallas, and I think the latter was just kind of a lack of decisiveness. There was that talk in that Arizona defense for so long of positionless football, with guys like him and Zaven Collins that were tweeners that would have been left out before, and I think it ended up just being square peg and round hole, whereas in Dallas, I think they looked at the situation and said, all right, if you go back and really look at the Penn State tape for Micah Parsons, his best reps were going at the quarterback. And so we'll play him in that original position. But eventually, the results became too overwhelming. Dan Quinn is too smart and capable a coordinator. He said, I'm going to take one of the most fearsome penetrators in the NFL, the tip of the spear on pretty much every rush, and I am going to make offenses have a nightmare of a time trying to find, locate, and then allocate resources to blocking that dude, and they've done it at an incredible level.
Man, awesome insight
Always
across
great,
the board. Congratulations on the new show as well. We really appreciate your time this morning, good sir.
Nah, thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.